Our next segment is a sector expert interview. And bearing in mind, we always have a focus on new technology, I thought it would be good to hear from a water entrepreneur. Now, what sort of person gives up the security of a proper job and starts up a new business in the water sector? What does it take to make a successful business in this sector? What skills do you need, and how do you keep going when times get tough? Well, to answer these questions, I spoke with Adam Stein, Chief Executive for Advantageous Systems based in California. And yes, that previous photo was him as a rather adorable little boy. In the following segment, you will hear him share what it's like to be a water entrepreneur. Adam, wonderful to be here with you. Let's start. Can you just describe who you are and what you do?
Yes, it's wonderful to be here. So Adam Stein, CEO of Advantageous Systems, water treatment. We have specialty patents and technology related to water treatment with magnetic particles.
Excellent. We've actually showcased you on the Water Action platform previously, and you're obviously doing a reservoir trial, which has gone very well. So well that we're actually doing a second one, but we're not going to talk about that today. Today is about hearing about the journey of how you became an entrepreneur. But before we get to that, I want to dig under the skin of what makes Adam Stein. So give me in 3 words, tell me how you describe yourself.
I'd say a thinker, doer, and optimist.
Thinker, doer, optimist. I think you've got to be an optimist to be in the water sector, to be selling technology in the water sector. You've kind of got to be all 3 of those, haven't you? But optimism, got to have it.
You
and
do.
And what about your parents? What do you owe your parents?
So, my parents, I'm a first-generation American. They actually emigrated from the UK. So my father's British and my mom's Israeli, but they emigrated from the UK. And, there's a bit of tenacity in America. And I think first-generation Americans definitely feel that. And I didn't have to pay for schooling and things like that. They definitely helped out there. And I think it's that tenacity. They kind of had a thought that you will be doing something great. It's not even a question. And I think a lot of first generation Americans and first generation across the world, it's just that feeling of, well, we did all this hardship. You're going to have to do something great.
Okay, so we've got a tenacious optimist. This is what we've got. Now, is a tenacious optimist what you need to be a successful entrepreneur? Because you have been a successful entrepreneur. And let's just, for the audience, just take me through a quick potted history of what you've done to get to where you are. And if you feel comfortable, what are the lessons you've learned? The things that went right and the things that went wrong.
Sure. I'd say the water industry is we started as a medical diagnostic company. And this was in 2008.
So nothing to do with the water sector?
Nothing to do with the water sector at all. I studied neuroscience in undergrad. Biotechnology, biochemistry, and business in graduate school. Worked in the FDA for a small period of time. Got into nanomaterials. Didn't think of water at all.
Okay.
And then in the 2008 crisis, when we needed somewhere along the lines of $1 billion to get our medical diagnostic to market, I thought, well, what can we do? And the National Science Foundation in the U.S., they gave us a grant to kind of bring our technology to the water sector. And that's how we got into the water sector.
Okay, so it wasn't strategic. This was fortuitous. It was opportunistic. You fell.
It was fortuitous.
Okay.
It was fortuitous. And then ever since then, we stayed in the water sector and we started figuring out different markets like in Central California with farmers, different regions that really needed the water sector to care about them. And nobody was really helping them with their solutions, be it removing a selenium or arsenic or selective, removal of technology, or the fact that they couldn't use reverse osmosis. They were inland, all of these different issues that came up that nobody was solving. And it was quite exciting, actually, to think that, hey, here's a sector, we all drink water, we all need it, but we're not innovating in certain regions.
So, which bits were easier than you thought, and which bits were harder? Because it's interesting, because you weren't dealing with municipalities at that stage, were you?
Correct.
Were you? No.
No, we were dealing with kind of quasi utilities. These are water districts in Central California, but for the most part, we're dealing with farmers. We're dealing with individuals who own quite large acreage of almond farms and pistachios predominantly.
Okay, so I'm a farmer, I've got a field, I need to water my crops. I don't water my crops, I haven't got any money. The water I'm drawing out of the ground is polluted. I need a solution. Galloping over the horizon comes Adam with his team and his solutions. And so it's a no-brainer, isn't it, for me? So it must have been easy. These things must have been flying off the shelves. Was it that easy?
It was not easy at all. One of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur is that, you have to get things to market, right? Regardless of what sector you're in, you have to make money, right? Otherwise, you're not in business. And it was not easy. But at that time, nobody was doing reverse osmosis. Nobody was doing anything for the farmers in Central California. It was just sand filters and let's take out debris before we irrigate our fields. They really didn't have technology out there to reduce TDS or to remove different contaminants the way we do today. And at that time, we said, well, let's do whatever we can. And we built actually the second largest desalination system in Central California. And we did pre-treatment to remove specific contaminants. We figured out, well, boron's an issue, and selenium's an issue, and arsenic's an issue, and let's tackle these individual issues.
And I remember seeing, it was, 5-6 years ago, I remember seeing you present at a tank forum. And the video you showed, you were actually doing algal blooms removals with the nanoparticles. I remember being blown away. It was such an impressive piece of footage, and it was like, okay, I get it. It's very powerful. As an because there's lots of entrepreneurs in the water sector who are struggling. They're struggling because the industry moves quite slowly. It's like all infrastructure sectors. It's a slow-moving industry. Now, you said that you're an optimist, and you said that you've got tenacity, and I suspect those are two things that every entrepreneur needs. What advice would you give to Adam Stein in 2005 before you'd even moved into this?
The advice that I would give is get somebody to pay you rather than trying to get the grants or the other funding. Get somebody to really say, you know what, we like your product, we will pay you X, whatever that is, early on, first year in business. I think that's the biggest challenge, that you get into this valley where, other people want you to do a pilot, you get, a little bit of money for a pilot and everything like that. That's great. Take that money, do the pilot. But what is most important is get that final end user to pay you for the product early.
Yeah, grant money can become a bit like a drug. I do liken it to it's like a drug, because you've got to service the grant, you've got to write reports to feedback, and universities are terribly good at that. But then you spend so much time servicing the grant that you actually don't spend time talking to clients and working out what you actually need to build a business that isn't dependent upon grants. Am I right? Am I sharing the same?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Anything else that you need as an entrepreneur?
You need to have a good team. I think that's the other thing that you underestimate until later on in your career. You need to have a team that you could depend on, and you need to let them do what they do best. I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes you feel like you have to do a lot on your own.
I'm the one who walks water. Everybody else just carries me. Yeah, you're right.
and I think if you think about, hey, this is what I could delegate to this individual, and I trust this individual, they'll trust you, and they'll do better work. And I think that's something that it took me time to learn.